pause here in a moment if everybody wants to just settle in your seats here. There's a few more seats up front here if anybody needs to come and have a seat.
Let's take a poll.
I just wanted to start by acknowledging that we are on ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, the territory of traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by peace and friendship treaties signed between the Mi'kmaq and the Crown. These treaties did not involve the surrender of the land, resources, or sovereignty, and they remain legally binding to this day. We express our gratitude to the Mi'kmaq people for their stewardship of these lands for thousands of years, and we recognize their deep, ongoing connection to the land, waters, and all living things. So good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Before we begin, I just wanted to mention that tonight's meeting is being recorded, and I kindly ask everybody to silence their phones and remain respectful while others are speaking.
Your name is
We're here to listen, to learn, and to speak up in a productive and respectful manner. Please try to hold your questions to the end. We will have an open question period once our speakers and experts are finished speaking. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Colby Soller, and I'm your host for tonight. I'm from East Dalhousie, about 15 minutes down the road. And while this isn't exactly my backyard, it feels like home. I've been traveling these roads most of my life, 20 years and counting. I went to school up in the valley, and I've spent years surrounded by forests, lakes that make this part of Nova Scotia special. We're here tonight because something's being proposed that affects all of us. Uranium exploration and possibly mining. And I know that might sound distant or maybe even harmless at first, but the reality is that the risks it brings to our water, land, air, and health, they don't just stop at property lines or town borders. Tonight, I'm not standing here as a politician or an expert, but I'm somebody who cares, somebody who's watched this land change through the seasons, and somebody who's proud to live here in a place where neighbors still wave when they pass. I'm 24 years old, and while I don't have a family of my own yet, I plan to one day, and that's part of why I'm here. Because this fight, it's bigger than just us. It's about the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the woods we hope our kids and grandkids will one day run through. It's about making sure this province, our home, stays wild, clean, and habitable long after we're gone. The choices we make today are going to ripple far into the future. We've seen a huge response over the past week and a half since our first meeting, and it's been absolutely overwhelming. People are paying attention, communities are waking up, and it's been amazing to watch how quickly this is all growing. So again, thank you all for showing up here tonight. We're stronger when we stand together. We are Nova Scotia strong, and we stand to reinstate the ban. So with that out of the way, I want to turn it over to Megan here, who is going to start us off with the presentation. So I'll let you introduce yourself and explain why you're here.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Megan Himmel. I live in East Dalhousie. We started with a community meeting down there last Tuesday just to spread awareness. So that is what we're here to do today, is to spread awareness, to let you know what we know, what has been put down through the government channels, and so that you guys can be aware of what is going on and hear things from the experts who are here tonight. Take what you will from the slideshow presentation. I've just come up with some information for you all to look at. We asked you all to speak out to your MLAs, but we'll get to that in the end here. So I'm going to start the slideshow and just go over a little bit about it. The history of uranium mining. So Nova Scotia was explored by mining companies in the 70s. They took core samples from different areas, but they did not proceed with mining for many different reasons. In 1981, there was a moratorium put in place that was later followed by a legislative ban in 2009 due to environmental concerns such as groundwater contamination and radioactive waste. Unfortunately, March 26th of this year, the moratorium was lifted, and the call from many experts for protecting our waters, lands, air, and health was ignored. On May 14th, a request for proposal, also known as an RFP, was issued, and a call for prospectors was initiated. This RFP closes on June 11th. The request for proposal was released again May 14th, naming 3 proposed sites for uranium exploration in Nova Scotia. The first spot is Louisville, also known as River John in Pictou County, Millbrook, Hants County, and our beautiful community of East Dalhousie, Cherryfield, Annapolis, and Kings County. I have the links here, but I do not have Wi-Fi, so if anybody would like the slideshow, email to them, and they can get all of the links from that. This is the plot for the East Dalhousie Cherryfield area. You can see how close it is to the waterways. So the timeline. The moratorium was lifted March 26th. May 14th, uranium was added to critical minerals list. May 14th, a request for proposal was announced. June 11th is when the bidding concludes for that proposal. On June 12th to the 26th, they will decide the prospectors. They will announce them on July 7th, and the 11th is when the exploration license is granted for 2 years. That is all in the RFP. Here are the 3 affected areas on the map. You can see East Dalhousie and Millbrook are very close together. Here is naturally occurring uranium in groundwater in Nova Scotia. So we know it's down there, and we also know it's better to leave it down there. But you can see the areas in which it connects Annapolis, Kings, and it even connects us to the Hants County site there with all of the uranium deposits. This is a picture of our water areas. So as you can tell, it's all blue. Nova Scotia is made up of so much water. And that brings us to the LaHave River watershed. Our lakes, ponds, rivers, and streams all around the proposed site in East Dalhousie is included in the LaHave River watershed. Lower 60 Lake, Mac Lake, the ponds, Peter Stillwater, L Lake, Cloud Lake Wilderness Area, and other waters nearby, and all of the lakes listed here, they all flow down into the LaHave River watershed. So how do we keep our waters safe, and how do we protect our ocean? This is the map of the LaHave River watershed. And I will mention that every site in the province is in a watershed. The Annapolis Valley as well, the site in Hants County, it goes into the Avon River and it goes into the Minas Basin. And the one in Pictou County, it's River John. Every place they want to mine for uranium is in a watershed area. This is a letter that was sent out to landowners in East Dalhousie. As you can see, the RFP listed that it was put out on May 14th. The first letter received in East Dalhousie to a community member was on May 27th, 2025. That's the date that it was sent out to the landowner. In that, it states that you should allow exploration to happen on your property because it helps people manage their health and safety in terms of well water and radon gas in their homes and buildings. It also states that companies are required to remediate any disturbance they make to your land. That means restoring it to the state it was before exploration has started. It also goes down and talks about the economic and health benefits of exploration as they consider the request of a company. I hear some of you all laughing, and I'm kind of glad of that because this is a very, you have to look at this and then hear from the experts on the health. Okay, guys? So that is what's being sent out to us from our government. Just to make everybody aware of Bill 149 and the Minerals Resource Act, it is something that everyone should know, as exploration won't just happen in these 3 areas. They plan on doing tests in many other areas. So I suggest knowing your rights, checking out the Minerals Resource Act, and there's information here. Also to let you know that the Expropriation Act was revised April 1st, 2025. The Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, they are a wealth of knowledge and have helped us out along the way with many different things. So this is a little bit of information. Again, and there's websites here, and there were handouts out back there. So make sure you get some information here, and you'll also hear from Nancy, a member, tonight. So uranium exploration and mining in East Dalhousie could potentially spread radon as far as 400 kilometers. That doesn't only include all of Nova Scotia, that includes New Brunswick, PEI, part of Maine, the Atlantic Ocean. It also means that a large number of Nova Scotians would face the risk of additional lung cancer diagnosis, as radon is the 2nd leading cause of lung cancer. 85% of the mine's radioactivity is left in tailings piles and would continue to be radioactive for hundreds of thousands of years. We're not just talking about a few years. This is forever. Meanwhile, the wind and water would distribute it around. It would most likely leak into wells, eventually the LaHave River, and then the ocean. And the province would have to take over looking after it after the mining company left. And we know how that has gone in the past with mines. This is just a picture to show you a 400-kilometer radius from the center of Nova Scotia and how much the distance would cover. And here's a map just to show you the risks already for potential radon. And you can see it follows along the path as the map of the uranium deposits. So if this is a high-risk area already in the red, what's it going to be like if they start doing exploration? There's only one other province in Canada that does uranium mining, and that's Saskatchewan. little bit about Saskatchewan versus Nova Scotia. The land area, the population density. They have a lot of farmlands and prairies. We have a lot of water. They are almost 12 times larger than us. And in the next photos that I'm going to show you, they're not surrounded by water. This is a photo of the water areas in Saskatchewan. So you can see there's a few lakes there, and we do know that they are on lakes. But now I'm going to show you a photo of Nova Scotia. We are all water. Everything connects. If they drill and explore for uranium in Nova Scotia, it is going to contaminate water. In Nova Scotia, there are 69 abandoned mine sites that the province has identified, with 67 requiring assessments and remediation, and 60 sites needing cleanup, according to the Halifax Examiner and CBC. The provincial government has identified 127 potential contaminated sites on Crown land. There's articles that show taxpayers are responsible for $148 million just to clean up abandoned mines. Uranium mining is one of the most dangerous types of mining due to risk of cancer-causing radiation. At the end of its life, the province will be left with the tailings pile or pond containing radioactive materials, which will remain dangerous for the next 10,000 years or more. So what do we do in Nova Scotia? We rely on fishing and agriculture, both of which are at risk, with soil, air, and water being contaminated. The environmental costs associated with the mining of uranium are not acceptable. I'm going to go into a little bit about this company. I'm not really going to say much, but I'm just going to show you some images that I received on a website that no longer exists. This is the Blue Sky Uranium Project. It includes Blue Sky, so it's a Cloud Lake Wilderness Protection Area. I'm not quite sure how this is come to be, and maybe some experts can talk about this, but Cloud Lake, Palmer Lake, Millet Brook area, East Dalhousie, Bezanson Lake. Regional targets are Canoe Lake, Kehoe Hill, and Central SMB. So this is the Blue Sky Uranium in Nova Scotia, Cloud Lake Project, Palmer Lake Project. I didn't know there were any projects yet, as they're still in discussing who's going to get the RFP for this. Again, this website has been dismantled in the last 10 days. So Blue Sky Uranium says they are focused on high-grade, low footprint rather than the large open pit models. But you'll hear from our geologist experts to let you to talk a little bit about the mining aspects of that. So what can you do as you all came here tonight to learn a little bit more? You can talk to your counselors. We have some great counselors here tonight who have shown their support. Talk to your MLAs. We're not getting support from our MLAs from this. We've reached out. None of them are here tonight. I'm a little disappointed in that, but they also voted for this. They voted for this to go through, so we need our voices to be heard. We need to let them know that we are not okay with this. So that is it for my slideshow. I'm going to hand it back to Colby, and he's going to get the speaker started. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much for that slideshow there, Megan. Next up, for speaker, we have Chris Hutcherson. So come on up.
My name is Chris Hutchison. And I just want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. I just got a few things I want to say about us personally here at the farm. We've got a sugar bush that's located just up the road. My wife and I run it together. And the Nova Scotia Conservative government has been citing the whole reason for this uranium mine exploration was for economic development reasons. When Chris Palmer, our MLA for the region, stopped by on Friday, this is what he used as a defense for the project. We understand Nova Scotia needs more economic development, but right here in Lake Paul is a company that's been trying to develop and grow using our natural resources in growing maple syrup. We have hit stumbling blocks by the government of this province since day one. They're only interested in their type of development, not considering what is already here and has so much potential. We have grown with this community, developing business like a mechanic shop, coffee shop. The forest that we farm our maple syrup on is directly in the path of this uranium mine. We do not want to lose our way of living. We have many times tried to work with the natural resources to develop our sugar bush. We have the potential for 100,000 taps. We only have 30,000 because of the lack of support from our government and DNR. Here's a quick comparison between the maple industry and the forestry industry. The best 1 acre of forest clear cut, it may gross $3,000, and it will be 50 to 75 years before it produces again. That same acre of maple sugar bush produces $3,000 per acre every single year. The employees work the same acre every day of the year. Forestry is declining because of over-harvesting. In the year of 2000, there was over 2,000 people employed in the forestry industry. Now there's less than 600. There's just less timber to cut, and the timber they're cutting is getting smaller and smaller. The growth of our company is a win for the whole province. We export 75% of the maple syrup that we produce. This is direct outside revenue to our province. We sell to Europe, the Middle East, Central America. This growth is continuous, but the problem is we're running out of land to produce on. The land is there, we just don't have access to it. We produce on about 700 acres. But we have 2,500 acres around it. Then there's the Anna King block, which comprises of approximately 90,000 acres of potential sugar bush. The revenue is going to go into the pockets of the people and the businesses in this province, not going to a company in Australia who's just coming in to take our natural resources and leave us to clean up the mess. There's so much more potential for economic development in this Anna King block, which consists of 90,000 acres. This is the headwaters for the Lehigh River watershed. We are working on protecting the Chain Lakes Wilderness area for recreation. All these areas, DNR is actively cutting down the forest, even though we've presented proposals and petitions against such activities. The people in this area of Nova Scotia are not being heard by our government. Whether it's conservative or liberal, it doesn't seem to matter. Our voices are not being heard. And there's the thing that they are listening to is Australia companies and the lumber companies are going above and beyond to make things happen for them. Face it, once this land is cut down and drilled underneath us, its use for anything else is gone. So it's time to stand up and say enough is enough. So I just want to
Thank you so much for that, Chris. So next up, we have Gail Tupper, who is Councillor of Glooscap First Nations.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to to introduce myself again first. Neen Deloisi, Gail Tupper, Illuminati, Glooscap First Nation. I do want to acknowledge again that we are on unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people since time immemorial, really. So you hear that statement often, but what does it really mean? It's more than just formality. It's a recognition of presence, of history, of a living relationship with the land. And today, I want to give a little more substance, some truth and context to that acknowledgement. Across the lands we call Mi'kmaq, archaeological evidence tells a powerful story of long-standing Mi'kmaq presence. So at the Melanson site in Gaspereau Valley, there are artifacts found there that date back 2,000 years. At the Mersey River, 8,000 years. Gaspereau Lake, which is very close to here, 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, the artifacts. And at the Debert site, which is just on the other side of Truro, 10,000 to 13,000 years ago. So we often use the phrase, since time immemorial. And while we can point to specific dates from archaeological digs, we know there is more yet to be uncovered. More history, more knowledge, and more truth. So let's pause and think about this. The Egyptian pyramids, often seen as one of the oldest monuments in human history, they date back 4,500 years. It's mind-blowing. That means the Debert site is 3 times older than the pyramids. That's the depth of time that we're talking about, and that's the meaning of time immemorial. So the Mi'kmaq people have lived on these lands and cared for the natural resources here for millennia. And we're still here. We're still living, we're still protecting, and we're still resisting. Which brings us to why we're here. We oppose the proposed mining and fracking projects in Mi'kmaq. These lands and waters are sacred. The resources they hold are not just assets to be exploited, they are gifts, and we have a responsibility to care for them. So the 3 proposed extraction sites, they're all within 18 to 40 kilometers of 6 Mi'kmaq communities. Our people will be definitely impacted, yet we were not properly consulted. On March 20th, the Nova Scotia legislature passed Bill 6, an act respecting agriculture, energy, and natural resources. This bill lifted the province's long-standing moratorium on fracking. Houston has cited concerns about energy security and the economy. But what about our concerns? What about the land, the water, the people? Houston claimed that there was a meeting on March 7th with the Mi'kmaq to discuss lifting of these bans. But I can clearly say that there was no true consultation. None that meets our rights or respects our voice. And Houston's comments only led to confusion and speculation. We have grave concerns, especially with Clause 21 of Bill 6, which repeals the Uranium Exploration and Mining Prohibition Act. I want to remind everyone here that act was designed specifically to protect public health and the environment. So let me be clear, this is environmental racism. Time and again, Nova Scotia has dismissed our rights to self-government. Decisions about Mi'kmaq lands and waters are being made without us, and they are being pushed through at a pace that echoes colonialism. We are constantly fighting for our rights, fighting for our voices to be heard, and fighting for our Mother Earth. Let's not mistake speed for progress, and let's not confuse economics with justice. And let us never forget that this is unceded land, and we are still here. Walalia.
Thank you so much for that, Gail. Next up, we have Nancy Covington from Cape.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm a retired family physician. I just pulled the tick off my neck, which kind of distracted me. That just shows we're all from around here. And I speak as a member of Canadian Associations of Physicians for the Environment. But I also belong to an international group, International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War, for many years, and studying the whole cycle of uranium from this stage to nuclear weapons has interested me for a long time. I was peripherally involved with the events of 2008-2009, which led to the establishment of a ban on uranium mining and exploration. Here's a little token from that age, and that website, by the way, doesn't work anymore, so we can't use them. But I have deja vu feeling, because community meetings are happening all over again. But there's some differences. Back in those days, it was the government that organized many of the meetings. They wanted people to know. They wanted buy-in from the people. The government listened to us. If you wanted to have an expert, outside expert come, they would arrange to listen to that person. Our Cape physicians have sent a letter, and we're sending another letter. It's going to be an open letter next week, Tuesday, requesting an appointment. We have not even received a response from the Premier, just a letter from Tori Rushton. I just wanted to say one little thing about the physicians. Shortly after the Nova Scotia's ban, mining companies started explorations for uranium close to Sept-Îles in Quebec. After petitions to stop that exploration were ignored, 23 doctors in that community stated publicly that they were ready to resign en masse and leave town if that project moved forward. They stated that the threat to their water supply put too much risk on their families and communities. As 23 physicians represented 1/3 of the total number of physicians in that community, they became a strong force, and in 2013, Quebec became the 3rd province to have a moratorium on uranium mining after British Columbia and Nova Scotia. But now we've, as you know, as you've heard, we've come backwards. By the way, can you hear me without this?
It's better.
It's better, okay. Sorry there.
But I think they heard you, but it's better.
It's, sorry. Anyway, that the reason those 23 physicians felt so strongly was that the aquifer would get contaminated, radon would be released, and their families would be at risk of lung cancer and all the other things that uranium does cause. I thought I wanted to show you today a little bit about why uranium mining is worse than mining in general, why it's why we have to leave uranium in the ground. And the principal reason is that uranium doesn't come alone. It comes as a package with 15 different byproducts, if you want to call them, starting with uranium and disintegrating with the radioactive release of a particle all the way down to inert lead. Now we hear about some of those things along the way. Of course, we hear the uranium, that's the only one they want. Down in the middle, there's radium, which is a substance which, if it gets in your body, we treat it like calcium and it goes to the bones. And in the 20s and 30s, the uranium girls used to take paintbrushes and paint dials on luminescent dials on their watches that people bought. Unfortunately, these women died with disfiguring cancers of the jaw and brain. So they knew that radium in that series was a very bad element. Now, uranium, when it gets absorbed in the body, it's not the radioactivity, like if it happens in your wells, it's because it's a heavy metal. So it's going to affect the kidney and liver. Now the radon, which is produced by radium, is the one that we worry about kind of the most because it's sneaky. It comes out of crevices in the soil, and to some extent, about a third of our natural background radiation is actually from radon gas. And another third from the cosmic rays, but here we do have that, and it's recognized by our government because Health Canada advises if you have to measure the radon in your basement, and if you are at a certain level, they suggest that that you block the holes and do mitigation efforts to stop that entry into your basement, because it is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Now, the way it works is that it'd be nice to have zero radon gas, which we don't, but proportionately, the more you get, the more chances of having lung cancer. So that is when uranium companies come along and put holes, even exploratory holes in the ground. That releases the radon, which increases the risk of lung cancer. And later on, I was going to tell you about a story or a study in East Germany, which showed release of radon gas from a certain mine, and it went out kilometers, but what they noted is that at about 100 kilometers away from the mine was the area with the most increase in lung cancer. So, other than that, there are very few direct studies on humans from uranium mining. Another study in northern Saskatchewan shows, gee, the bugs are after me today, that radon from the mines gets into the lichens, it floats around, gets into the lichens, and then it goes through the stages where it only has a half-life of 4 days, and it expels a radioactive particle, which some people call a subatomic piece of shrapnel, which is why if it happens in your lungs, it's not good, because that can cause cancer. But anyway, in the plants, it goes down through the 7 more particles, and it's picked up, eaten by caribou, and the caribou concentrated in their livers and kidneys, and if people eat that, their chances of other types of cancers increase. So the two ways this uranium can affect you, basically, is by uranium in your well, which happens as soon as it becomes mobilized when they start poking in the soil, and happens also
and during construction in various areas. We all know that the province tests for both uranium and arsenic because these are mobilized when people dig. So you don't want those heavy metals, nor do you want radon. So I'm going to say a bit about Saskatchewan and New York. We talked about how much larger Saskatchewan is than we are, and drier and so on, what makes it a little, I guess you could say, here the radioactive material would be spread more quickly because of the excessive rains and winds that we have. However, I just heard from a friend of mine in Saskatchewan the other day, because of all the fires they're having in northern Saskatchewan, and she is concerned that the vegetation that's growing on the tailings ponds is burning, and this vegetation will have brought up some of those radioactive materials, and possibly it's in the smoke. Anyway, she was concerned about that, so that's another unique way this stuff can spread, and why we want to leave it in the ground. So you heard that the tailings contain 85% of the total radioactivity, and they actually cause a continuous stream of radon gas because the radium is in those tailings. And they'll remain radioactive for hundreds of thousands of years. The responsibility supposedly was supposed to be with the province in Saskatchewan. The anecdotes I hear are that the province doesn't look after their tailings areas. A common myth is that we need more uranium mined for medical isotopes, for medical purposes. That is not true. We can actually make, with cyclotrons, which is a particle accelerator, without using any radioactive sources, and get enough for the minuscule amounts of radioactive isotopes for medical purposes. So don't let the mining companies pull the wool over your eyes on that one. The other thing is low-level ionizing radiation causes disproportionate harm to children, women, and especially the unborn. Women are twice and children 5 times more sensitive than men, yet the so-called permissible dose exposure levels were derived from a concept called reference man. That comes back from the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So permissible does not necessarily mean the level is safe. And one last concept, all uranium, once mined and processed, ends up, unfortunately, as 3 things: nuclear waste, nuclear weapons, or radioactive fallout. Now I realize there will be a little blip of electricity produced in nuclear power. However, the main product of a nuclear power plant is for waste, because that's going to last. The electricity will not. So, I, along with the other speakers, want to see uranium and all those 15 associated byproducts left in the ground. That's the safest place for them. That's where we'll get the least effect from them.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Next up, we have a geologist, Elizabeth Costers, who is going to do a presentation for us.
Go ahead, I can't stand up, but I just need to get
Thank you for. No, wait, there's some seats over here if you wanna, if you
Come have a seat, guys. If you want to come on in, there's some seats up front here.
Oh, I don't have 4 seats. Yes.
I won't cross any buttons. Thank you for inviting me. The presentations before me were extremely good. So I only have to add very little. What I was asked to do for 10 minutes was to give you a little bit of a geological background, which I hope to put together, hoping that it will be as understandable as possible. I'm going to be in Talmagouche tomorrow, and the situation there is slightly different, but so I'm hoping to merge these two presentations into something that will then be posted on the website so you can access these from home. That's the plan. Right. This was the land acknowledgement slide that I will acknowledge, yes. Elder.
I didn't touch it.
So a few basics. Uranium is the heaviest element on Earth. Every element, this is a little bit of basic physics. Every element consists of a core with what we call protons, which have a positive charge, and neutrons, which have no charge, surrounded by electrons, which have a negative charge. In stable elements, the balance is, the charges are balanced. Uranium is unstable. It has way more neutrons and protons than electrons. The charge isn't balanced. It has to do something. And so it decays. This is what we call decay. It ejects protons or neutrons, and this is what we call radioactivity. This is the radiation. And in doing so, it becomes something else. These are the decay elements that we talk about that have just also been mentioned. The complete process, decay process from uranium to lead, forget last name, lead as the final stable element, takes 4.5 billion years. That's a long time. It still means we have to be worried about it. And during this time, it becomes many different elements, and we've talked about radium and radon. Those are two of the dangerous, intermediate stages, each with fairly short half-lives. And so for a while, it exists as a radon, which is a radioactive gas. And in Nova Scotia, we have a lot of radon risk. This is a natural condition. This happens because of the way we're put together geologically. So radioactive uranium and radon are both abundant in Nova Scotia's bedrock, and they are a public health risk. Mining or no mining, that's the situation. So now I'm going to give you a geologic map of this area. Do I have some, can I point with something? Ooh. Yeah, something longer. I should have brought it. Okay. A broom. Anyway, we'll make this as simple as possible. But you live here, so I focus this on this area. Here comes a broom.
It's what I flew in on.
Right. So here we are at Lake Paul, and this is a small portion of the geologic map of Nova Scotia put out by the Department of Natural Resources. It's accessible online, it's very good. This is where the Avon River is, and this is where Windsor is, and this is the original 3 Mile Plains uranium exploration site that was wells drilled in the 80s or 90s, before the moratorium. Those drill cores are in Stellarton at the Department of Natural Resources core facility. I've studied them there. This is the Millbrook area. Here we are in Lake Paul. All these reds and pinks and purples are granites. All of you live here. I'm sure you all know what a granite looks like.
I found one outside. I put it in my car. It has, oh, it did it again. I touched it. It's back. No, it's not. It's back.
I feel like a klutz. Okay. So all this red and purple and pink is granite. It's about 400 million years old. The different colors only mean slightly different compositions, but those slight differences are meaningful. Around the granite in orange and green are sandstones and slates, and I forgot to mention, in blue is the gypsum that we all know what drops down around Windsor. And then these browns are the red sandstones of the valley and underneath Cape Lomond. Now, how does this go about, and why is this important for uranium? So, uranium is a very common element in the Earth's crust. It's much more common than gold, for example, which is another target of this government. Granite is original Earth crust, and it wells up from below during a very long time, a few 100 million years. It's not a volcano when it wells up. Uranium likes to attach itself to silicate minerals, and granite is all silicate. Sand is all silicate. They have various detailed compositions, but it's all silicate. But uranium can also easily become mobile. So it comes up with this thing that we call a pluton, with this granite body, and it has uranium attached to the various particles in that body. And that body is not homogeneous, but for the sake of argument and for the sake of having 10 minutes, we'll assume that it's homogeneous. That'd be great. Now, after a while, after the granite intrudes, the land rises because of granite intrudes, but also because of other factors. And then, over more millions of years, this higher land erodes off the granite body and of everything around. So we have erosion happening on all the sides around this granite body, and we end up with a new land surface, which is this orange line. And then the result is, yes, thank you, is something like this. It's all gone, this has been redeposited, and now we have land that has former deposits around it and things that eroded off the granite, and the granite itself exposed. And now, yes, if we look at our area here, that's exactly what we see. This is the pink, is this granite body, and all this stuff around it is the material around the granite body. But because the granite body eroded and material was deposited in the area around it, and because uranium is mobile and likes to attach itself to silicate minerals, which is all we have, the uranium is not only in the granite where it was originally, but it is also being redistributed in the rocks surrounding. So basically we have it everywhere. But it is in higher concentrations in this original area, except in some exceptions. Mostly it's there. So here we are in Lake Paul, and I have to admit I've lived in Nova Scotia 23 years and I have not been here. I've really tried to make an effort to see all of it. I live in Wolfville, no excuse. This is the Meadowbrook area, and this is the East Dalhousie area, and they're both in these pink granite. So the exploration companies are going for the original uranium. In River John, Palmagouche, they're going for redeposited uranium. It's north of that granite body. Yes. So the different types of uranium mining that exist. So the different uranium, the granite body here is distributed in a different way. We just talked about that. And then the uranium in the sedimentary rocks that surround the body. In the granite, the uranium is distributed along the preferential mineral paths in the granite. And there is, as we mentioned, the granite has different colors of pink. It's not homogeneous. It's all granite, but it's not homogeneous. In the sedimentary rocks, such as in the River John, Palmagouche area, it's present as a so-called roll front. It means it migrates through the sedimentary rocks, all sandstone there. And so mining methods will also be different, because if you mine from a granite where it's not randomly distributed, then it's different from when you mine it subsurface. So on the granite, it will likely, we hope it won't happen, open pit mining with all the risks that have been mentioned of dust and additional risks for human health and water. Dust, surface water pollution, and of course effects on fishing and hunting. And in the sedimentary rocks, it will likely be solution mining, which happens below the surface, and its equipment is injected into the subsurface, and the uranium is washed out with the material that is brought back up, trying to put it as simple as possible. Yes? So we've already mentioned Saskatchewan. This is northern Saskatchewan, where within this ellipsoid are 6 or 7 uranium mines. It's the highest grade uranium in the world, whatever you think of uranium mining. But there is nobody there, and it's the highest quality, possible quality in the entire world. It's all hard rock. So we take this same size area, then this is the same distance as all of northeastern Saskatchewan, where almost nobody lives, except a small First Nation which has suffered terribly because of it. But here we have about 500,000 people in this area. It doesn't seem even worthy of the comparison, yes. So here's one tiny, and then I'll stop, personal interpretation as to why the hell is this happening when we have relatively densely populated part of the world, not even a very high quality of uranium as was proven in the 90s, and when we have this massive reserve in Saskatchewan. My sense of it is, and I found this on a website that deals with uranium investment. It's here. The uranium price in the stock market rose recently, especially now, but it's been rising for a couple of months. So the possibility of political support has also increased. The president, whose name we shouldn't be mentioning, signed an order to cut regulations, of course, what else is new, and accelerate licenses for nuclear reactions. There's a growing demand for uranium. Guess what? Because it's artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. Of course, he's very much a fossil fuel guy as well, but his important buddies in the virtual world need more power. This is what this is for. But of course, there's also a threat. He's threatening tariffs on various countries, especially on Kazakhstan, which faces a tariff of 27% and is a lot further and in a politically unstable part of the world. And Canadian apparently is 10%. Trudeau changes his mind every day. This is why this is happening. This is not because we need uranium for whatever purpose the Premier comes up with between his first and his second coffee, because he doesn't really know anything about it. This is global politics. This is why it's happening. We have the highest quality and the biggest uranium reserve in the world in Saskatchewan, within our own country. Independent of what you think of it, we have that. There is zero need to explore uranium in a densely populated part of the Nova Scotia. And I'll leave it there. I think that's, oh, I wanted to add one thing. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot your name. Of what you, can I make a clarification on something you said? Okay. That proves it. Oh, here we go. Did I have the other one? Yeah, okay. The other, Megan showed an image of the granite body of the southern Nova Scotia mainland and said, yeah, this is where the uranium is. The uranium is very thinly distributed throughout it, and radon, which is a gas that we all know is dangerous, it is not uniformly distributed throughout that granite body. It looks like a raisin bread. So it's not a uniform distribution. So if you use that image, which is great, then you must realize that this is not a uniform distribution of those materials. And this is, of course, why companies go and drill and test, because no rock volume anywhere is ever completely uniform and the same. Not like your cookie batter, which you hope is, the same everywhere, so it rises the same. I just wanted to add that little detail. There's another geologist here, so he actually works on a uranium mine. Brian is over there. I have never worked in uranium exploration or production myself, but he has. So if you have specific questions, that could be to him, but we'll work together. Thank you. I think that's all I have. I take it to the broom.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Next up, we have Barry Leslie.
Do I need that? Okay. Years of coaching rugby and soccer, so I can cover two fields. So why am I here? Well, I was in East Dalhousie first night. I was at Vaughan. I've been at this since the first letter came out from John Lohr asking all municipalities to support natural resource extraction carte blanche across the province. And I got involved then. In East Dalhousie, I talk about my grandchildren. That's why I'm involved. I am not a geologist, I'm not a physician. I'm a retired teacher who before that was a plumber pipe fitter. So at East Dalhousie, I talked a bit about my grandchildren and how I wanted to protect them and their future. At Vaughan, I talked about our connection. Those of you who hunt, those of you who have woodlots, those of you who just enjoy going out and walking through the woods and listening to the nature, and especially if you're there early in the morning when the birds are coming through and the sun's just coming up. Those of you who recognize all of that and our connection with that and how it grounds us, that's what I emphasized in Vaughan. Today, I want to say that we all know what's going on. We've listened to Brad, we've listened to Elizabeth, we've listened to Nancy, we've listened to others, and we know that this is not good. So where do we go from here? What can you do? What can I do? The motivation is there, but we've got to keep it going. We just can't stop and fall by the wayside and say, well, we gave it our best shot. Not good enough. All right? The game isn't over until it's completely over and you go full blast. So I've got some suggestions and some ideas around that, and a couple little stories, if you'll bear with me. What have I done? Well, when I got that first letter, copy of the letter from John Moore, I spoke to Wolfville, I live in Wolfville. I spoke to Wolfville Town Council, Committee of the Whole. And I asked them a few things about it, just to raise their awareness. And at that point, some of the councillors in Wolfville did not know that letter had existed. They got it that morning when I went in and spoke. I've talked with the mayor of Wolfville and some of the councillors. As a result, Ramona, sitting over here, and the mayor and another councillor, Wendy Elliott, are sponsoring. They're concerned citizens of Wolfville. They're sponsoring a meeting Tuesday night at 7:30 at the Al Whittle Theatre in Wolfville, where they're showing a film from 1990 called Uranium, an NFB, National Film Board film. And then Elizabeth will be speaking again, amongst a couple other speakers, I'm not sure.
John and Thomas.
And the big thing about that is, we have the mayor and a couple councillors on board. And that hopefully will culminate, and on June 17th, the next Wolfville Council meeting, a motion being put forward, similar to the one that was passed by Pictou County, to get the municipal ball rolling, to get the municipalities to realize the people of the province don't want this. It's horrible for everyone now and in the future. All right, so we have to, it's your responsibility along with me, all right, to stop this from happening. So what can you do? Well, I've contacted my councillors and the mayor. You can contact your councillors. The other day, I popped by Julie Van Exen's office, my MLA, who supported this. Not sure she knew what she was supporting. But I have an appointment with her on July 7th to talk about it in detail, because she has to go get her speaking points. But go and look them in the face. You can make a phone call if you want, but it's better to look them in the face. When she looked at me and I told her why I was there, I saw that, oh my God. I don't know what to say. I can't talk to this guy now. And what was she doing? There was no one else in there. She was breaking down cardboard boxes behind her protective glass. Anyway, so go see your MLA. Go see your councillors. Record everything. Not, and I don't mean have a recorder with you. I mean, when you go away from that meeting, jot down notes. What did you say? How did they react? Maybe even send them an email. Thank you for meeting with me. It was interesting to discuss this issue with you, and these are the points I came away with. Just to have a paper trail. Because it will certainly help in the next election if you decide to use it. Contact your member of parliament. Most people think this is strictly the province. The province has jurisdiction over mining, except for uranium mining. Now there's going to be some negotiation there always is, and give it a go. And Brad and myself and Sarah Duggan from Vaughan were on a Zoom with Cody Blois Friday morning. And he knew part of it, but the federal government has responsibility for uranium mining from the exploration stage to the reclamation stage. Right? So that was a very positive meeting, I was going to say, Brad, would you agree with that? Mr. Blois will be contacting the Nova Scotia provincial government. Bureaucrats will be talking to bureaucrats. Mr. Blois will talk to Corey Rushton, and they'll have a talk about this. But it will be in comments like Mr. Blois, who has toured a uranium mine in northern Saskatchewan, said things like he is cognizant and understands the footprint of the uranium mine and what that would look like in this area.
It's pretty close to a float.
Yeah, well, it's written down. I report. So contact your MP. All right, and for some of you, that will be Cody Boyce. For others, that would be Dr. Moore. All right? So do that. Make them aware of what's going on. And again, record. Speak with everyone you see. I was at a meeting yesterday morning at a coffee shop. I love my cappuccino. And about something completely different from this. I'm a Rotarian in Wolfville, and I was working on a project there. But at the meeting, someone overheard me. And the person I was meeting with, fellow Rotarian, we did talk uranium a bit. So I came out of the shop, and this other couple, my age-ish, came out of the shop, and the woman said, "Excuse me, I overheard you. Are you Barry from Uranium?" And I said, "I guess, maybe." And she said, "Well, I've read on Facebook some posts involving you." As a result of that meeting, she and her husband were from Berwick, and they said, "What can we do?" So I gave them a few pages of the petition, and they're going to go door to door and vote. So talk to everyone you see. Some people obviously have more time than others, and some people are much more comfortable dealing with others. But those people will come out. But if we don't talk about it, we'll never get anywhere. So you can do all of this. Keep records of it. We need to keep the pressure on with the MLAs, municipal councillors, members of parliament, and your neighbors. Don't let people sit back and do nothing. There are future things we can do too, if we have to. Violence is a non-starter for me. Won't go there. All right, does nothing but hurt. Nothing good comes out. But I'll be 70 years old this year. I was a teenager in my early 20s, in the 70s, the early 70s. I have done my share of walking in front of police, barricades, or whatever, over the years, for a variety of reasons. Those actions do not have to be violent. They make your point. There are other things we can do too that are fun. We can go to a town with a dozen people and have our signs, and in rush hour traffic, 5 o'clock, at nice, Walmart's there, Canadian Tires there, wherever, at the sunlights, stand on each corner, yell and scream and hold your sign to make things known. All of those things have impact. And those are things we can all do. Stay focused. Companies, governments, and some other people will try to distract us. Get us talking about climate change or whatever. We need to stay focused on stopping uranium mining in Nova Scotia. That is the goal here. If anything comes next, we'll be there to do it, hopefully. But right now, stay focused. This is not complex. Politicians love to say, oh, it's complex. No, it's not. It may be multifaceted. It may have a number of things to do with it, but it's not. They seem to think that they are the only ones around with brains. Well, I'm not seeing a whole pile of neurons firing into politicians right now. So I guess that's my message. All right, stay focused, stay active, go to meetings, and maybe even if you haven't, contribute a bit of money. If we wind up with a lawyer doing trying to get an injunction, those types of things, it costs. all right? There's a donation jar down there. You know, those of you who can, I encourage you to put a little bit in. That's what I've got to say. I hope you get home.
Thank you so much for those words there. Next up, we have David Cameron.
And I don't know why. Except got started at this back in 1970 something. So I guess it's continuity. Am I not loud enough? I have the mic. Is it going to work? Yeah, it's going to work. All right. Save my voice. Hey. It's good to see all of you. Every one of you. I'm mostly here, I think, to talk about the upside of this particular situation. It's a terrible situation. It's a terrible assault on our democracy, the processes of our democracy that we come to count on, to have a voice in what our governments, our short-term 4-5-year governments decide to do. So it's a full-blown assault on this process. Yeah. But there's a miscalculation, a serious miscalculation. You came out tonight. I saw signs, we've only been at this, a week, and I saw signs all the way up, coming out. Every meeting has been full, that people have attended. The speakers are getting better. Practice makes perfect. Practice as a democracy is essential. So this is the upside. You're all here. I'm getting to meet all my neighbors. This is a wonderful thing. Think about it. First Nations people sitting in the room, telling us their point of view. Okay? Face to face. This is genuine reconciliation. It really is. We can just talk. But when we come together to protect the land, to protect the water, and to protect the soil and the air and the future for our children and our grandchildren, that's genuine reconciliation. That's important. It's an opportunity. I thank Premier Houston and people around him that have given us this opportunity to rise up, to be awake, to let them know we're awake. And we're not going to go back to sleep. We're not going to go back to sleep. We will get this part done. We'll get this part done in fairly short order, I think. I have talked to people who know a whole lot more about business and uranium and that sort of thing than I do. There's no business case for this in Nova Scotia. Absolutely zero. In fact, I've been, getting after some of the people I know. Why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you spending time working on this? And they're saying, hey, Dave, it's a non-issue. They can't do this. There's no business. There's no market for this. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, there's got to be other reasons than, we have broadband, enough bandwidth, yes, enough bandwidth to think about the other possible things that connect politically, that connect economically, It can connect even historically. Maybe you've heard that the people in Harrietsfield area up towards Halifax still don't have good water to drink after 50 years. And one of the things that exacerbated the situation there was exploration for uranium 40 some years ago, 44 years ago, I think it was, whatever. And so I got challenged on that. You know, I saw this in several places, and I got challenged on it. So I researched as best I could, you know, sitting at my Warrior keyboard, and I said, you know, did this happen? I asked Google, and AI came right back with, yes, there was uranium exploration in Harrietsfield, and it ruined the water. It wasn't mining, it was just exploration.
And they marched this week.
So then I went looking for the documentation to substantiate that. Can't find it. It's gone. It's gone. But I did find a line from Hansard, which is what? The newspaper of our legislature, basically. Like when they deal with things in the legislature, it goes into Hansard. Okay, so it's a historical document. And there's a line in there, I've forgotten the year, but there's a line in there that says, you don't have to worry about the uranium exploration in the Harrietsfield area. It won't cause any trouble. Very interesting. That's direct evidence that, yes, there was exploration. And it caused a lot of trouble for that community historically. So these are dots that we can connect and come forward in time and say, what's going on here? What are we missing? What are we not paying attention to? How, as somebody talked about, the wall being pulled, you know, over our eyes. Well, we've got more eyes looking now. There's a better chance we'll actually see what's going on and take care of it. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.
The people of Harrietsfield were marching this week. There was a march in Harrietsfield this week. Did you know that? There was a march.
Thank you so much for speaking there, David. So next up, we have Brad Reddick, who is another geologist and has experience in the mining company.
So I had a brief career in geology with development of exploration, including uranium and Labrador. Not in a mine, unfortunately, I was Elizabeth had all the fun geology to talk about, so I'll mostly just answer questions if you guys have geology questions. But I did want to touch on a couple other things that, like Barry talked about there. You know, maybe you can't do something directly, but I know a woman who was very involved back in the 80s who now will take care of my 5-year-old son when I'm out doing fun things like this. So that's how she's involved. One of the things she also told me was that back in the 70s and 80s when they were doing this, she didn't think they had any geologists. Well, in the last 10 days, we've gone from having one who happened to be the former counselor, so people who were like, hey, you did geology, come talk to us. And now we've got 4, I think. And there's businesses that want to help us too. Like it's really quite significant. I think we'll just leave it there and we can deal with questions if people want to deal with
Ask
questions.
how many people here were involved in the 80s. Show of hands.
You mean alive or?
The one other thing is I have the documents from the Canley archive on the line, which is a legal search, and so you can look up the judgments from 2015 and 2017. I've not gotten all the way through the document there, but it's pretty nailed shut that uranium in the wells is because of both the CFD site next door, and from what I haven't found the actual lines about mineral exploration being part of it, but anything you're doing that's gonna help that happens. And there's also like 1,600 pages of supporting documents, which I we've been trying to plow through a lot of documentation, a number of people who are out there with various backgrounds. There's a, well, geez, it must be 20 or 30 people anyways who are pinging my phone every hour with questions or messages. So there's, I'm happy to give it to you. 250-532-3598. I didn't give that number at all over in, well, as a municipal council for 4 years. What was I going there before this?
There's a question back here.
Yeah, are we ready for questions then? What do you guys, well, you're running the show there. I'm just here to, I was gonna say it looked pretty, but I don't do that very well.
We have a few more speakers first.
All right, well, let's do speakers first and then we'll go to questions.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad. Next up, we do, it's the,
Tim, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would actually.
Perfect. Come on up.
Not new.
This-
Hi, my name's Tim Harding. I'm the councillor for District 5 that goes from Elspert Greenwood to Dalhousie. I don't like what's going on, but here we are, and I was in Dalhousie too. I'm hearing it loud and clear, and I'm with you. We have land in Dalhousie as well, my family, so I know what it's going to be worth if this keeps going. I invite everybody to come to council committee of the whole on June 17th. It starts at 9 in the morning. And King Buchanan. So if anybody wants to come, please do. You should put on the docket if anybody wants to speak. Anybody can speak at the end of the committee, but if you put your name forward that you guys want to speak, you should do that. So, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to see you all here, and what all I get to say right now. So I'll go back, and I don't know how I will tell the rest of my council how I feel, but I'm just one of those many. So I hope after I get through, you'll understand how important this is. So, thank you.
Brian Connell, would you like to speak?
Sure, you want me up there, or?
Either or.
Either or, yeah. Brian Fuzzy Connell, I'm the county councilor for East Dalhousie, and that goes from East Dalhousie right over to the village of Lawrencetown. Quite a fairly stretched out zone. I've been on council for 2 years. It's very sad that we still haven't got any information from our residents about our council. We're in the same boat as councilors as you guys. The only thing we are is we're the government closest to the people. That's why we are here, and they're not. Because we see you guys every day. We see you in the grocery store, we see you at the gas station. Wherever we go, we see people that we represent. So that's why we're here as concerned councilors. Also, in the areas of lakes, and I know that previous councilor said, I have 10 other councilors to present this to. It is on our council agenda for Tuesday, this Tuesday coming. I'm going to give a full copy of the presentation to each councilor, and I'm going to pinpoint some of the interest, just showing them the size of the uranium discovery or whatever it is across Nova Scotia, that everyone should be concerned. In the lakes areas, I have 1,700 constituents that vote. Roughly, 17. But in the summertime, that pretty much doubles with people from Halifax, Ontario, people that own cottages that come to Annapolis County in the East Dalhousie area. So we actually represent a lot more than just the everyday residents that are there. We represent them, but it also has a lot of impact across this province if this goes forward. So we are going to talk about it at our council on Tuesday. I'm going to put a motion forward, same as Pictou did with the and also in Annapolis County, from seeing other councilors' emails shooting across our profile, there are citizens outside of East Dalhousie that have great concern. So it is starting to stretch out. Excellent, seeing the signs coming out today. Good work. And powered by people is staying together. So good job and keep working.
Brian, can I just clarify one thing? Is your council meeting open like Kings County is, that members can come?
Our council meeting is open. You should, it may be a little late when it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
To be able to get up and do a presentation or anything.
Yes.
We can ask if someone's sitting in the gallery to speak.
Even if we can just attend.
Yeah, you can attend. It starts at 10 o'clock.
10 a.m.
On Tuesday.
Outside the signs.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
So anyone's welcome to come. And like I said, I've already put it on the agenda to speak about it.
That's great.
And do what
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brian.
Sorry, can I just give an update from Modal as well?
Yes, please. Would you like a microphone?
Just to say that also on Tuesday, there's a confluence of
Who are you?
happening. I'm Alison Smith. I'm the council for District 6, which comes up as far as Fernie Corner and goes down as far as Blockhouse.
Lunenburg.
Yes, Lunenburg. So I have gotten it onto our agenda that we will consider a motion very similar to Pictou, with the addition of requiring consultation with the Mi'kmaq. We felt that was important to get into the motion, so we'll consider that at our meeting. Our meeting is in the evening. It starts at 6 o'clock, and I can't say when it's going to happen during the meeting, but we do have 15 minutes of public input at the beginning of every meeting, and that time is split up by whoever shows up. So anyone can come, you sit in the gallery, and when they ask who would like to speak into public input, you just raise your hand. And you'll have the floor for however many minutes.
What date, time of the meeting?
What was that day?
It's Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the evening. The municipal building is in Cookville, across from the Best Western.
It's very important to have news media at these different county meetings. They should
Well,
be
they
there.
are, I think ours, as well as maybe some of the others, they're live streamed on YouTube, so you can also check in that way. And the other thing I'll say is that I did ask for a staff report on uranium mining and exploration in the Lahave River watershed, so we'll be getting that back on June 17th. And I think that's going to be quite a decent staff report. They've had keen on this, and I encourage everyone to tune into that. Anyway, that's the update from Modal.
Thank you so much for that, Allison. Next up, we have Janice Wilson.
I'm here. Do you think I need that, or can I compete with him? I didn't coach rugby, I didn't coach football, I played soccer, so I did some yelling. So my name is Janice Wilson. My husband and I have 260 acres of land designated for uranium mining and exploration in East Ohio. 170 of those acres borders the lower 60 Lake. So when Megan started her presentation, you saw the lake. Well, that's the lake that we own land on. And it eventually flows into the Lehigh River. This property has been into the Wilson family for decades, if not 100 years. It's been a source of income for my family for years, and we tried hard to be good stewards of the land and take pride in being responsible harvesters, and I harvest as well. Saw logs, firewood, Christmas trees. We use the land for recreation. I walk and ski that land. The property is home to all kinds of wildlife, lots of songbirds, including some birds, which I think are found on a species at risk. There are several brooks feeding the lake. And we strongly believe that mining will not only ruin our property, but destroy the Lehigh River if there is contamination, because we are part of the watershed. We are upset with the Houston government for removing this ban on uranium mining without one word to landowners or communities. They say now they want to have dialogue. The dialogue should have come first. And do they not work for us? They should be working for us. I object to the Executive Director in Geosciences and Mines with Natural Resources with the first statement she made saying, this is not a residential area in East Dalhousie. Well, guess what? There's quite a few of us here that live there. We do live there, and we don't want uranium mining or exploration. And if you ask a politician, and they'll be honest with you, they'll say, if you want uranium mining in your backyard, and if they're honest, they're going to say, well, no, I don't really want it here. We don't want it there either. And even though sources say it may take 10 years or more for a mine to be up and running, the timeline already makes me very uneasy. The government announces that East Dalhousie, Annapolis County, and its Deans County, by the way, and its Church Hill, by the way, is one of the 3 possible sites. And they did it in May. They put out requests to mining companies. You evaluate a mining company and pick a successful applicant and make the announcement by July the 11th. When have you ever seen the government work that fast? I understand that uranium mining may be done more safely now than perhaps it was done, or could have been done in the 70s when the idea was first proposed. But no mining company can tell me that there is absolutely no risk of contamination. It's just not happening. Because uranium is still uranium. It's not like you spilled a carton of milk and you can wipe it out. Without uranium is going to risk health. So please consider standing up and opposing this crazy idea of mining uranium in Little Nova Scotia. Sign petitions, write your politicians, go to their offices, and let our concerns be heard. And Barry, I like the idea of talking to your neighbors. I love to talk, I'm not going to lie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janice. Next up, we have Julie Klassen, who would like to say a few words.
Hi everybody, we've got a great turnout here. My name's Julie Klassen, I live in East Dalhousie. My husband and I came to East Dalhousie over 30 years ago, and like all of you, we have created a life, built a home, and raised our family here. Unfortunately, the Houston government unilaterally passed that Bill 6, overturning the ban, They chose not to consult with the Mi'kmaq, with the communities or landowners. These actions only distill our trust in the government. Nova Scotia and neighbouring provinces do not have enough square kilometres nor the topography to allow for safe uranium mining. And then there's the question, can it be safe? No. Please do your homework, read up. There's been a lot of news on the TV and the radio and many posts and information shared on our Facebook page. There are health and environmental impacts that this mining will have in our province. I urge you to read and research the material provided or visit a local library. Make your own informed decisions. As it stands, the maritime climate, with its rainfalls, winds, hurricane-prone conditions, will only spread radioactive contaminants from uranium mining to our cities, communities, forests, wildlife, farms, coasts, lakes, watersheds, and water sources. Who would want to visit Nova Scotia's uranium mines? Our government want to open the mines in our backyard. 400 kilometres, the radius was calculated during a study after the Second World War, and there are documents that we can share with people regarding that. The government's race to secure critical minerals should not be at the expense of the people and the environment. Radioactive waste and radon from uranium mining is life-threatening. My message to our elected PC MLAs, or 43 of them, who voted for Bill 6, we are very disappointed in you. Upon your election, did you not take an oath of allegiance, and is your job not to serve and protect the people of Nova Scotia? This bill, by the way, affects their families too. Maybe they need to wake up and smell coffee. Trust has been broken between the government and Nova Scotians. We ask that an immediate pause on the RFP and exploration be halted forthwith, because the lives of over 1 million Nova Scotians and the future of our province are far too important to be decided by the only 43 PCs people sitting in the legislature. After all, those MLAs have already demonstrated that they cannot be trusted. And finally, our communities and fellow Nova Scotians. Let the people of Nova Scotia decide. It's time for a provincial referendum to be held on the mining of uranium. It's time for the ban to be reinstated forever. Let us stand tall, be heard, be strong and united. Say no to uranium mining in Nova Scotia, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Julie. With our speakers out of the way, I would like to open the floor to questions. If anybody has any for Brad? We'll go on that.
Hi, it's a question, because I wasn't able to speak, but bear with me.
I'll see if I can do this, okay.
I've done some research and I've discovered a dot to connect. So the question should be, why here and why now? The answer, in my understanding, a little bit of research, is the final product of uranium mining is yellow cake. The only way that that can be produced is with a large amount of ammonium that comes from ammonium gas that is diluted in water, which washes everything down, and you get the final product. My belief is why here and why now is because of Point Tupper. While that production facility that is going to produce the ammonia is gearing up, it's not going to produce 100% right away. It's going to trickle up. Uranium mining would be a customer for the smaller amounts that are produced. That is why I think there are certain people that believe there is a business case. So that question I'm asking to you, please do your research. Please include it in your questioning, because I believe that if we stand firm and say no, that's what we're going to be up against. And that project is number one on Mark Carney's national interest project list. And if we wait, anybody who goes against it is unfortunately going to be labeled as a terrorist. And I'm saying that with all honesty. I'm not trying to upset people, but if we let this get out of hand, we have no place. So thank you for listening. If anybody wants to answer the question, anybody that gave presentations that will help me clarify this very important point, I'd be very grateful. Thanks again.
Could you repeat what you said at the very beginning, what they're going to produce at Point Tupper?
Point Tupper is going to take a number of different substances to create the end product, which is an ammonia gas, which then is liquefied, cooled and liquefied, put into tankers and sent to Europe. So it is a product that while they're ramping up and producing small amounts, would naturally be, uranium would be a good customer to take. And so that's why I think they're coming. Thanks.
Sorry, can we just get your name? Angie.
Thank you so much, Andy. Yes.
I have some questions on the technical side of this mining, and maybe our geologist friend here can answer that. In strip mining, which is what uranium involves, how is the groundwater isolated from the pit?
That one's really easy. Not. It's not at all. It's like most open pits have water in the bottom, and they're pumping it out constantly. There's a couple.
So you're saying the aquifers are just running free into the pit?
Yeah. Like so. When you're in an open pit, you're spending a huge amount of resources monitoring wall stability. Some of the bigger mines in the U.S. and Chile and stuff like that, they have radar systems in the pit to monitor the pit walls around it, and they can track that movement at like a millimeter scale, and they know exactly what's going on.
So where do they pump the water to?
Probably the tailings pond for the most part, yeah. If there's any contamination, it would go right to the tailings pond. If not, it would go to just wherever. Yeah.
Because I don't have a lot of experience with mining. I come from an oil field background, and I know what happens there to isolate the groundwater from the drilling process.
Right. So like when you're doing your drill holes, I mean your mud and an oil, like your drill mud in an oil patch is going to block off most of your porosity and keep most of your groundwater doing a lot of isolation. Right? But they don't do a whole lot. In the exploration program, typically after a hole is drilled, you cement it.
Yes.
And you go down, put a block in 50 feet, and then pour a whole bag of cement down the hole. Quite literally, that's how it's done.
Right.
So it's just fine.
That's not leaving that drill exploration hole open and radon gas flowing freely.
Well, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do.
Cement it off so it's...
See, that's what they're supposed to do. It doesn't always happen. And then, I've not read the regulations here in Nova Scotia. I don't think we have any specific uranium regulations yet. I don't know if we do. In Newfoundland, we could apply for an exemption. So we could leave the casing in the ground, and we didn't have to cement the hole if it was on our main sort of ore body. And so none of those had anything done. When I saw wells there that had water coming out of the ground, 1.5 feet. That was very radioactive. Yeah, we went 8 months somewhere. Yeah.
Didn't Houston also say that they're gonna do fracking too? Do you recall?
No, not in this. Fracking is oil field.
Yes.
Yeah, they have lifted the ban on both.
Right.
And so I think you can fully expect that that is also going to come on the agenda.
Because I do recall from history.
Yeah, yeah.
If I understand, it takes pretty long lake to do a whole.
Well, it's a whole different, I don't think we should get into it now.
Yeah, but I just.
But yes, it will, because by throwing out the ban on both fracking and uranium, he's
Right.
opened the door to both. This is the
Okay,
first that's happening, the other one, it's entirely possible as well.
And more is a great believer in front. Yeah, great believer.
Most of the fracking will take place on salt. Because there's no real oil and gas drilling.
Well, chemical gas. That's why they do. Maybe chemical. Well.
Before we get too far off track, do we want to, just try to stick to uranium. I mean, ask us questions, Liz and I, we'll talk rocks all night, because we're nerds. Yeah.
What do you think they're gonna do here? Will probably people pit, you know, or whatever.
It's trying to speculate on what a pit would look like, or a mine would look like is dangerous business.
Yeah.
So far, I've only looked at one, I looked at the Millet Brook reports from back in the 70s. They only drilled down a couple hundred meters, so that would end up being an open pit. Anyways, like that's not, you would never underground mine that. But when you start drilling and start looking, like if they hit something good, they'll trace that down, and you can have an open pit on top and an underground mine underneath. Pretty common to do that sort of thing. Like it's yeah, but it's that's also 10 years away just in a mine development cycle before you have an active pit, and that's not with any sort of holdups along the way. These things do not move quickly, and that's not a regulatory thing, that's an industry thing.
And I'm assuming that open or underground mine, the results would be the same, you still have tailings ponds. Still a fixed ground.
Yeah, they're pretty similar. And underground, you try and keep more stuff underground, because it's expensive to move, but I saw a hand over here. Yeah.
Not a technical question, and I gotta step out. If somebody wants a sign or two, where would they get them?
I've got to go here. There's a truck all set up. Anybody who wants one, we can have one. I'll give them to you.
All right, so just pull some out of the truck?
Yep.
Thank you.
There's also a donation jar of back if you want to put anything towards the signs.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I saw one over here. The two of them.
I'm just wondering, Brad, if you've been able to find work in Nova Scotia?
Doing what in particular?
As a geologist.
I've not looked for work in Nova Scotia as a geologist.
I'm sorry?
I've not looked for work in Nova Scotia as a geologist.
My name is Gary Wallace, and they've scared the hell out of all of us. I don't really believe there will be a uranium mine in Nova Scotia ever. It would be 20 years out, that's the time, and technology is wasting. But what scares me the most is you have these meetings and you get everybody worked up, and there's a lack of work. Our biggest export, young people leaving the province to get a job somewhere. We all want free medical care, we all want lovely roads to drive on, but no one gives a damn about thousands of ATV or four-wheelers beating us over the lumber, or the skidoos going in the winter, or the boats on the lake, but mention exploration, which wouldn't, in my mind, affect the province at all. It's one.
This isn't, ATVers are harming
us.
If someone wants to come and drop several $1 million in the economy, I'm all for it. You people,
I think if you look at this screen that we have up there, in this, that the website was taken down from Solterra and Blue Sky Energy, it says that initial exploration drill program along with extension of Palmer Lake, where is it saying here? It says 2025, the drilling, 2025 to 2026. They're looking for exploration. This is happening.
Can they do exploration for gold or?
They can do exploration for whatever they want, but we're talking about radioactive materials here.
Anyway, that's my thought.
Thank you so much for your
This is a very good point about like.
And the population of Nova Scotia is growing.
This is a very good point about like, are we stopping economic benefit from things here? So there's some really good case studies. Our gentleman here offered, I think there's some forestry industry, and sugar bush makes substantial money. Well, in terms of the ski mountain in Whistler, BC, has a 600 million ton copper deposit underneath it. It grades 1 or 2%. It was drilled back in the 60s. So we'll take that as being considerably bigger now, and it's probably worth $10 billion. That ski resort pulls in much more money than that. Maybe not in 1 year, but over its lifespan for sure. So there's always, personally, I believe we need to have mines in places, and I think as people live in with the majority of the benefit from mining globally, we have an ethical responsibility to have mining in our backyard. This is not a great place for uranium because of climate with all the water. Causes a lot more mobility of uranium, which moves the uranium around, which causes the town of Bridgetown. They had to drill extra wells there because they drilled into what is probably a roll front deposit, which is what's up around River John. Uranium is a very different beast when it comes to other mineral exploration. I've worked gold, I've worked uranium, I've worked base metals, I've done, the project I worked on in BC was massive. Absolutely, it was the biggest drill program in the world that year. I can go get geology work. I don't want geology work. I left that industry because the way I usually just describe it is, the only thing they exploit more than minerals is people. It's a really... That's not to say that all my employers are bad, but a lot of them were pretty rough. I mean, when I was leaving that company, my boss looked at me and said, I can get you on with, I forget their name now, but they own the Mount Poly mine, which had a tailings dam collapse in 2014. They put 21 million tons of material down a creek that was a meter wide, so it wiped out the forest for 100 meter wide swath for 1.5 kilometers until it hit the lake, and then it filled the lake with a great big sandbar. Those aren't shallow lakes we have in Nova Scotia. That's a BC lake that's deep. There's really substantial differences between uranium mining and gold mining. Normally, the way modern tailings pits are dealt with, they try to actually mimic estuaries at the ends of rivers for the most part. And what happens there is metals that are dissolved in every river hit their salt water where they run into it, and they actually come out of solution and form other minerals that are quite stable. Stable as far as they don't move around anymore. So that is what happens normally, and that's the same thing we do in tailings ponds. As a matter of fact, one of the gold mines I worked at, the primary thing going to the tailings pond was gypsum. It's a lot of money has come a long way, and uranium, the minister's right, or the premier was right. Like, uranium mining has come a long way, but it's still radioactive, and it's still uranium, and it's still all its daughter products and the radiation that goes along with it. So I in so many ways agree with your statements there, but like we should need to, as Nova Scotians, we need to embrace economic development, but we don't need to replace all economic development. I mean, I've been saving for a very long time. Probably the only time I ever agreed with Stephen Harper was when he said something about the Maritimes being backward and getting the wrong way. He was 100% right. That's what we all got offended by, right? That's that. Anyways, let's go on to technical things and on to politics.
I just want to say one other thing in relation to what you were talking about. I'm all for economic development. I want it, because I've seen all these people from the 1960s flee this area. And not only here, but the rest of Nova Scotia. My wife and I spent 21 years on the road. We went and visited all these mines that you hear about and see about all across Canada, United States. We went into them. There's a lot of them that are unsafe, that produce jobs, and they're needed, and they should be there. But what we're talking about here is much different than a gold mine, than a copper mine, and whatever have you. Yeah, there's an ugly scar that's left after they're done, but they're not dangerous. This is something that's different, and it should be treated as such.
I've got the numbers here. There's 1,088 people that work at the mine at Key Lake in Saskatchewan. Only 53% of them actually come from Saskatchewan. The rest are contractors. This, if it were a mine after exploration, it's not going to create work for any Nova Scotians. It's going to create work for contractors from away, and it's going to leave us with a legacy mess for the next 10,000 years. It's a no-brainer.
Back to your question.
Yeah, just a point. Any of us that are going to contact our MLA, maybe ask them the question why we didn't see this thing. We just had an election. Why we didn't see it on their public platform. We all know why.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one would be voting for them
Exactly.
if they'd actually been honest with us.
They lied.
Now, just a little personal experience. There's a huge amount of hubris around this whole idea of radioactive waste and uranium. We have a difficult time right now even holding oil companies accountable for their abandoned oil wells, and the public purse is picking that up. Now we're talking about a product that has a half-life going into what? Hundreds of thousands of years. This is absolutely insane that we're even questioning this if there's any kind of doubt. So the hubris that I'm talking about, I'm from a small Ontario community called Bancroft. There was a uranium mine south of Bancroft many years ago when we knew nothing, and all the tailings were used as fill for housing developments throughout the whole community. As it stands now, all those houses have been tested for radium. Most of them have been secured for radon, and there are small developments that have been completely abandoned because there's nothing they can do to regenerate the environment. So the hubris that I'm talking about, the arrogance that we have to think that we can actually manage a product for hundreds of thousands of years, and we can't get oil companies to fix their abandoned wells, is something that I think a point that we should make.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of good stuff to mention tonight. Excellent presentation. No question about it. And if you think, I don't know anything about uranium, I'll tell you, I spent 2 years in uranium mining on the schedule. And that was a good 60 years ago. And it was a good job. And I was paid more during those periods than Gordon Howe was being paid to play hockey. That's before they got negotiation stuff. But I spent the last 50 years in the water. I'm a geologist. Some geologists don't recognize me as a geologist. They wouldn't accept me into their association, so I joined I'm a professional engineer. And my specialty was groundwater. Not only was it groundwater, it was hydrogeology. And I worked most of my time in Nova
New Brunswick, the Philippines, Germany, China. And it didn't matter where I was working, I had to know as much as I could get on the geology. Not only the rock types, but the minerals in the rocks. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is a mineral that everybody's scared shitless of, excuse me. But, and it's only one of the minerals that we should be afraid of. That's what I thought. What about nitrates? You know what to do about nitrates? You do a little bit of baby? Not a good thing. So, when it comes to no uranium mining, yeah, I'd probably support that. Especially within 4,000 meters. 4,000 meters, we're like. But what I really would like to see is efforts made to map the areas where we know is uranium net. It might take some drilling, might take some geophysics. But a simple way to do it, without any drilling, don't ever use the word fracking to me, because that gets me going. That's a dirty word, fracking. Hydraulic fraction to increase well yield. We use it in water well development, as well as oil and gas well. So the point I want to make is that how many people have drilled wells in this area? All of you? Have you ever had a chemical analysis done in the water? Yep. Have you ever checked for uranium? Yes. Did you have uranium?
I don't have the results back yet, mine just went.
Right.
My water testing just went, I don't have the results back yet.
I would say it'd be less than 5% of the people with drilled wells in the country here have no idea what the hell's in the water. Not only do they not check for things like bacteria and copper and zinc and arsenic and all the rest of it. Because uranium is not normally, when you take a sample to a lab, uranium is not normally included. You have to ask for it. And there's a very small amount of uranium permitted in water that's not going to be a health issue. So what I would like to see, instead of drilling and doing this exploration, is more sampling. Maybe you can talk the government into more detailed sampling, specifically for uranium. That's all I have to say. It's been a very interesting evening. Thank you very much.
Other questions for you? Just one statement on that. 76 to 81, Esso and Shell, tens of millions of dollars investigating uranium mining in Nova Scotia. So the ledgers are there. The core samples are already, somebody's got that evidence that you are desiring.
Where is it?
Thank God.
My question's on the health side of it.
Yeah.
How many people working in a uranium mine, how many people do you know that got cancer from working in that mine? That was related to, their cancer related to.
Oh, yeah, cancer. But it was 50-some years after I left.
But how did they know it was?
My daughter had cancer. She was never near a mine.
But what test?
She was a nurse.
What test did they do?
Does anybody have any questions for our geologists and experts here, guys?
Thank you for your information. Does anybody have any questions for our guest speakers tonight? Okay,
I'm having trouble understanding. I live further up, but we didn't get one either. I can't describe, but it says we got these notices, no, we didn't get no notices.
You stated that the uranium.
I don't know what the circle was that they
So
gave them
what's
to.
the benefit to the province to do that?
Does anybody have an answer to that?
I can touch on it. Christie really just announced this morning that falls under our Net Zero 2030 as a green, sustainable source of energy. So with the Liberal talking points and refusing to talk pipelines to support this side, they are grasping at straws to find anything that will suit their Net Zero 2030 agenda, and this fills their goods. So regardless of how they feel about us being here, expect it to happen, because fiscal gain is in their vested interest.
It will not happen. You can't think that.
I was at the Office of the Environment and Climate Change in Kentville, just doing another unrelated thing, and I overheard them talking about it. They have no idea what's going on. They are also being gaslit on this whole project. So I asked them when we get to scrutinize the whole operation, and they did not have an answer for me. I have also worked in gold and silver mining in northern British Columbia. I know the Miners Act is nothing like most of you would understand when it comes to extracting minerals out of the ground. The rape and pillage aspect of it is real. Most people, unless you see it, and I understand that it's very true, there is a minimal scar when it is done right, and it is very good for certain provinces to generate revenue. This has a horrible underlying effect, and I'm all for fighting to make sure it doesn't happen. But the reality with the battles we've been facing lately, they don't have any interest in listening to us. And I appreciate Tim being here. I'm sorry I didn't mention Tim. I appreciate you and Tim. We've battled battles before, and we can make an impact. But it's got to be with confidence, it's got to be with pride, and it has to be unified. So if we don't communicate properly, they will take our talking points and use it against us. So let's tread incredibly lightly on this, because we are dealing with the entire global agenda for sustainable and best. Right.
Well, just the other day, Chris Farmer showed up at my place.
Pardon me, sorry?
Chris Farmer showed up at my place.
Yes.
And he got 45 minutes of an earful. But what he was trying to push was economic development, which I agree with.
Yes.
The second thing he was doing is trying to discredit what these meetings are all about. So he started to put out the word that there are people coming from away, and it's a small group of people that's doing it. So after he left my house, he probably wasn't in a very good mood. He went to East Dalhousie, and he talked to a few people out there, and from my understanding, he got basically the same thing. So he had the opportunity to come here tonight to better inform us. The politicians are being very quiet right now about that. They do not want to upset the apple cart. They're just hoping this will die off and we'll all go home. That's how they're treating it.
That's how sneaky they are.
So that's what I can tell you. I was late and I was listening to it coming from Prince Edward Island. I'm listening to her, wondering how she's still employed, yet alone making decisions like this. But that is the push, and they did mention uranium mining as crazy.
There's a bunch of other factors too that are global factors. Price is really high right now. There's all these critical minerals are listed as critical minerals, not necessarily because they're rare, but often because the major suppliers in the world are not our close allies militarily. So there's that. We've seen since the war erupted in Ukraine 3 years ago, a real change in global stability about things, and that's definitely affected a lot of metal prices as well. And there are lots of contributing factors, and I don't think we can put our finger on any one and say that's it right there.
Are there any other questions?
I just want to say thank you very much for organizing this, and I thank you for everyone that has spoken. This has been extremely informative, and I
have hope that this can be stopped if we stay together.
And anybody who wants to sign when they leave, my truck's right in here, and take what you want.